Welcome to the Better with Brock podcast. I'm here with Barry Conrad. How's it going, man?
It's good. How are you?
I'm great. Yeah.
Mr. Buck.
I just tried to do an intro and completely failed. I said the Better with Brock podcast. So,
That was awesome.
yeah, vegetables just always on my mind. I just love them.
And ice cream.
Yeah. So can you give us a bit of a intro, what you do, who you are, elevator pitch, type of thing,
Okay, cool.
30, 60 seconds, just to give
10
everyone
seconds?
an idea.
Cool. I'm Barry Conrad. I'm an actor and singer-songwriter living in Sydney. I am South African born, New Zealand citizen still. And I've known Brock for a long time now, so this is good to be on your show finally and have a chat.
I don't know you're a New Zealand citizen.
I'm still a Kiwi, man. When we moved...
Kia ora.
Kia ora, bro. Oh, bro.
Oh, yeah.
But when we left South Africa, we had to give up our citizenship. So I don't have dual. But I'm about to become an Australian. I'm doing it.
Yeah, I haven't done that yet. How's the process?
Well, I mean, this is not really interesting for the pod, but...
I find it interesting. That's all that matters.
That's all that matters. From the 1st of July, they've changed the law. So it makes it easier for Kiwis to have a straight pathway to citizenship. So it's going to be you don't have to be like a permanent resident first. You can just jump straight in and apply. So from the 1st of July this year.
Right. Sounds like that's when I'm going to apply. Because I need to do it now that I have a daughter. I feel like it makes more sense. Like I didn't really have a reason to do it beforehand. I was just like, I'm cool just to be a Kiwi hanging out in New Zealand. But like, I remember when we were buying our place, I was on like a certain visa, subclass 440 or something, and I had to pay more or something like that. If I was an Aussie citizen, I would have paid less. So if I want to expand, I guess I should get to it.
Yeah, that's why I'm doing it.
Yeah,
it's easy to travel, get those grants and everything, you know.
Yeah.
So that time too.
Yeah. So what are you doing now? Like you've been on TV shows, you've done theater, you've done reality TV. Like, what are you doing now? What are you working on?
Yeah, well, I just actually finished filming for a new TV series coming out on SBS called Erotic Stories. So it's very adult, something different to Neighbours and Home Away and things like that. But it's something different, a change of pace. And then I also just finished a podcast series called We Are Lonely, and it's about connection. So I'm a mentor for this amazing guy, Alex Harmo, who is a philosophy student and also went viral on TikTok with his first video. And so dealing with like the effects of fame and notoriety and how they can cause isolation. So it was really interesting walking through that process with him. So the mentor situation with the podcast and then filming that new acting role, doing that. And then I've launched my own show, Banter with BC as well. So that's been really cool. And yeah, just doing, endorsements and ambassadorships and a bit of travel. And eating a lot of food along the way.
Oh man, you sound very busy.
You're busy.
To take it back to that first, the first guy that you said, sorry, I forgot his name on the TikTok guy. Sorry, what was his name?
Alex Harmo.
Alex Harmo.
Yeah.
What video went viral? I'd love to know.
So
because there was a point in TikTok where there's still viral videos, but there was definitely a point where you could almost post anything and it would go bonkers. Like when the platform was very new.
Yeah.
But like, was it recent?
It was semi-recent, but he'd never been on the platform before, and he didn't necessarily hashtag anything, or it wasn't anything sensational. He just gave his opinion about, sort of like a half-serious opinion about something. You should check it out, actually. Alex Harmo on TikTok. I'll let you decide, but he's like, I just put it out there with no expectation, and then 200,000 views on that the first ever video on TikTok. So that's a lot.
So after that, you come in with the mentorship. What do you advise him? Like, was he struggling with, I don't know, like, I guess being known or like messages or being a guy who put out heaps of, I don't know, who put out content that was big? Because like, I know, and like being on TV or being on social media a lot, being judged by others publicly cannot be easy. So like, what were some words of wisdom that you gave him?
Well, the reason why he came on the show was because of that notoriety from TikTok and not knowing how to deal with that, coming from a background where he already struggled with a bit of depression, anxiety, being away from his family, his roots, because he's part Algerian. So also being someone that's a person of color in like a mainly white society as well. It was a lot to navigate. So my role in the show is to help give him strategies. So learning how to get out of his head a bit, work on perfectionism because he has such a high standard of himself, disrupting his day. So for example, he might spend 10 hours in the library and see no one. So even as something as simple as meeting someone for a coffee, getting a feed, doing something like that, making decisions about, he's like, I've got 10 ideas for these videos. Like, how do I decide what to do or take a step? I think sometimes people can be so in their heads about to take any step they don't know what to do. So my job, so to speak, was just to help normalize that first of all, and to give him some strategies that are practical, and for him to see someone that is similar to him that can give him advice as well. It's not like someone that's unrelatable or 80 and white, or you know what I mean? So
yeah. Just like giving some random advice.
But there's also a psychologist. It's not my job to fix.
Yeah.
Our job to fix anyone. It's more like a mouthpiece and guide. And he's such a cool guy.
Yeah, but I think there's a balance of advice that is backed by research, evidence-based and all of that. And then there's also the anecdote or the experience.
Yeah.
And I think that's where people kind of go wrong with like, oh, it's evidence-based, or like this is what the research says, because I think that being evidence-based is mixing that with like what you've experienced, because that's what kind of also brings evidence. Like, you know, yes, studies. And then there's like, well, this is what my experience like tells me. And one thing that I guess I've developed tough skin, or thick skin, I should say, or like toughness and resilience from stuff like that, because you lose so much time, like reading comments, and TikTok is crazy for comments. I did a few videos that went really bonkers as well. Like one of them's got like 7 million views, and I was...
What was it? What were you talking about?
Yeah, I was giving glute advice, and like all these women just like jumped on it, and I was like, whoa! Like I looked and I was like, no, like it's millions of views. Like in a day, it had 1 million views, and then over time, it's just been like growing and growing and growing, and it's just been going crazy. It's like how to get an hourglass body, because there's so many young women that are like following these workouts, and these workouts are they're ab workouts, and they're saying this is an hourglass body. If you do this, you know, like it's going to help you grow your glutes. And I'm like, there was no glute exercise done. Yeah. And all I'm doing is just giving my opinion, which is the same thing. I wasn't being radical. I didn't have my shirt off doing like backflips, and I wasn't swearing hardcore. I was just being myself, but I was like, okay, like this is the workout and this is what I think. And yeah, it just got like heaps of like comments. Like there's like, like thousands. And you could lose a lot of time diving into them. And thankfully, most of them were positive, but there are some negative ones. Like I did one that was kind of like a joke. Yeah. Recently, and I'm getting ripped apart daily. So I don't go into that comment section, and I go into others. But like it was kind of like a joke. Like there was this workout that was like lying in your bed. And
what were you doing?
Yeah. No.
Okay.
I was reacting to it. And like it was a bed workout, and it was like, you know, and the image is like this lady lying on her phone on her stomach and like kicking her legs up and down and saying like, you know, like do this and then like cross your legs, but you're still on your back. Oh, sorry, on your stomach, on your phone, like lying down on your bed. And I was like, instead of this workout, step off your bed, turn to the left and walk to the gym, you know, like just as a joke. And everyone's like, you know, like you're so like not sensitive to others. Like, you know, there's people with disabilities that can't get out of their bed. Like they can do this. And then people are going like, yeah, I've done this and I got amazing results. And I'm like, man, clearly this video wasn't for you. Like, I'm not here to try and make people feel bad that aren't physically able to do that. Yeah. But yeah, it's such a, I don't know, like if I didn't have the tools, or let's say had been on reality TV before, where I'm just like, had to like block out people, I don't think I would have handled that well. Like, cause like people are swearing at me saying you're like so dumb and you're effing this and effing that. And I'm just like, you know, whatever. Like, whoa, did the table just... I think I just pressed the button accidentally. Anyway.
But include exercises.
yeah. We're gonna go down to finishing a squat. But yeah, it's a tricky place. Like, how did you deal with being on TV, reality TV? Like, did you have any pushback? Did you have like, was it all positive and like that's awesome, or like did you have to go through some things?
I definitely went through a lot of things, and it was one of those situations where even on social media, it was before it was a thing, really, 2013. So I had like an Instagram and Facebook, but it wasn't for any particular reason other than just to be on it. And being on the show, just the opinions that people would have. Some people no profile photo, like trolling hard. Like, you're not talented at all, you can't sing for shit. Or like, you look terrible. Or then religious people from my past saying, I can't believe you're dancing with chicks around you and like half, with no clothes on. I'm like, man, you know what? So it was a lot. It was like an assault of all my senses, and I had to sort of step back and not. It's so tempting as well, because human nature, you want to know, am I accepted? Do people like me? What do they think? I put a lot of work into that performance, but the trick is, it's like that element's on the stove and it's hot and you're still touching it. You're still going to get burnt. So I had to really, and it's never ending. Even now, if I'm tired, it's easy to look at good comments for dopamine hits, but then jarringly you'll get something out of nowhere and just say, man, like, who, no one, or like, and that can really get me down, because I'm a words person as well. So even knowingly and knowing what my strengths and weaknesses are, I still go in and look at them sometimes when I know I shouldn't, but I'm much better now. But it's hard because there's no rule book for it as well,
Yeah, I think that's a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, so like if we go back, say, like way back in the day, we were used to having feedback from peers and like maximum 50 people, let's say back in the village days or something like that. But now we have these people, like we have tens of thousands, if not millions, like depending on what platform you're on, whether it's TV, whether it's reality TV, whether it's whatever, social media, like people can just chime in from anywhere. And then we have to deal with like what 1,000 people think of us. And it's like, it's so hard. And what you think is cool is different to what I might think is cool.
Yeah.
And you have to kind of just, read it or not read it. I think one thing that's really cool that Gary Vee says is like, don't listen to the hate, but also don't listen to the positives, and then that kind of keeps you level headed, because like you're saying, it's easy to go, if I posted really well and you're like, oh yeah, I'll check those comments and reply to them and be like, man, that is insightful. I am pretty smart.
Yeah.
Or I am really talented, and then avoid the other ones.
I think the tricky thing about that is when part of your job involves social media, you want to also know how it's performing. So part of that is necessary. So trying to separate that can be a challenge, because you want to measure growth somehow without like taking the emotion out of things as well, and looking at the good and bad, as you said. Like, I try not to read reviews for that reason, because good or bad, you don't want to be pushed around by people's opinions. Even when I did Neighbours, I played a bad boy on the show, and this mom, I'll never forget, I was at this festival and she came up with her son and she's like, "You're a bad influence, like, it's such a bad, I'm watching the show with my kid. Can I have a selfie?" so she like went at me, but still took a photo. It's just weird. People think you are the character that you play. It's just perception's powerful. So powerful.
And it's hard to separate, because like for us, it's like, it's personal. It's us. It's not something that we've built. And when people judge it, they don't go like, oh, that thing that you created was terrible. It's like, you're terrible.
Yeah.
And I think that's the challenging thing. Like, man, even when I just walk around, there's 14-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 10-year-olds, like almost vlogging their life, posting stories and stuff like that. I'm like, man, like, I wasn't doing that when I was that age.
Yeah.
But I'm like they're putting so much out there. And if people say something, it's directly to them. It's like, it's your face, or it's your voice, or it's your acting, or it's your, I don't know, whatever you're doing, your work. But I find it hard to separate. I think it'd be easier if I created chairs or something and people said, oh, that chair is like disgusting. And I'll be like, that's fine. It's not me. At least I'm not disgusting. But like, like to go back to that video that I did on TikTok, like I'm the thing that's disgusting.
So how do you handle like comments now?
I think, and this kind of touches on what we talked about on Banter with BC, like going through tough things. Like I mentioned, losing my mum was like very tough. You get this huge perspective of what's important, and like thinking about what someone in America thinks about my opinion is like so small. And I've never really struggled with that since I was 12. So like, I guess I wasn't on social media before I was 12, or judged publicly. I just never thought about how significant that was because there's other significant things to worry about. And I feel like that's what really helps you get through that. You know, like you've been through a similar thing. And I find that people that can separate themselves have bigger problems. And I'm not saying that people that struggle with that don't have big problems and just need to do more and like get over it. But I feel like getting a glimpse of like what really challenging times are gives you perspective. Yeah. What do you do when you, I guess, have negative comments or anything like that? Like, do you have any systems in place that you automatically do, or do you just like, can you handle it, or do you have to like dwell on it? Do you talk to people?
I think when I'm doing the things every day that I know is going to help set my day up, it's easier to look at whatever. It's easier to look at both positive and negative comments. But when I'm tired, when I know I haven't been eating well or exercising, and I revert to my natural bad habits or, you know, the old ways of thinking, and then I'm just taken out more. So it's still hard to see negative comments, but I also realize they're not paying my rent. They're not, you know, like I can't take them with me.
Yeah.
It also comes with the territory. The path that I've chosen is making peace with that. The path that I've chosen is going to have positive and negative feedback is huge because no one's forcing me to do it. Yeah. Like quit then. So it's just part
stop
of the
posting.
It's just part of the job. Like to be in the arena, like having the fights, playing the sports, like you're going to get feedback. You're going to get opinions. And to not get opinions, like just sit on the couch and just do nothing and not engage with life or people, you know, so.
Yeah, when I was on The Voice and I got eliminated, I was pretty devastated, to be honest. And I didn't think I would be as devastated as I was because previously I had been on X Factor with Morehouse and I know what getting eliminated was like. Yeah. And I bawled my eyes out on stage. Like
Really?
Yeah, I didn't expect that to hit me so hard too. I guess I think I'm tougher than I am.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like I remember on X Factor, I was the person that was just like bawling my eyes out. And Ginny was there. Ginny Blackmore was there. Yep. And I remember like I didn't know her too well, but I was like hugging her, crying. I was like, man, what am I doing? What's going on here? And I couldn't stop for ages. Like I didn't talk to anyone. And I remember the night that we got eliminated. Even though we still came fourth, we still got signed to Sony, and I knew that was going to happen. I was just devastated because I felt like there'd been so much work put up to it. I'm so invested in it, and then it kind of just like falls flat on its face. But also, it's in front of all of New Zealand. So yeah, I just like cried myself to sleep that night. All the boys went out, like they're like, "Oh, we're going out for dinner," and I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm just gonna hang out in the room." And I just cried, man. I was like, "I'm just gonna go to sleep," and I probably fell asleep at like 8 or 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
Cried my eyes out, and then the next morning I was like all good. Sometimes like for me, I just need a really good cry and then I'm good.
Yeah.
So when I was on The Voice solo this time without the boys, I thought, oh, I'd be okay, you know. Yeah. But I didn't bawl my eyes out, but I felt really confused and really like.
What do you mean?
Kind of just like what just happened, and because I wasn't too invested in music, I was like this isn't really going to be my thing. But but then you're still giving it your best, and you're still in front of Australia, which is like a lot bigger than New Zealand. So I was like, oh man. So, and then I had this. I think the word's complex, but I was like, I was on TV, kind of like the singer, doing interviews in the magazines and doing like visual interviews on YouTube and all this kind of stuff. And then I was just going to go back to being a personal trainer in the gym. I was like one thought, I was like, how embarrassing. But then on the other side, I was like, I was doing it before, so what the hell? So I was kind of like that. So I canceled my clients for the next 3 days because I was working through The Voice too, which I think like, you know, not that I'm looking for sympathy or anything, but like that's like a lot of people don't understand that like The Voice doesn't take that long to record. Like you might be there for 2 hours and then you're out, and then you might go back for 3 hours and then you're back, and then you just go in for an interview and you're back. So like I was still waking up at like 4 a.m. doing clients from like 6 till 12, doing an interview from like, you know, 1 till 3, coming back working from like 5 till 9. Like I was still grinding. And I was like, I guess I was like tired and exhausted, and then getting eliminated in front of everyone. I took 3 days off, canceled my clients for the rest of the week, and then I just kind of sat at home and just thought. I was just like, it was weird. Yeah. I didn't really like sit on my phone, or I just kind of like put on music and sat around. I didn't really leave the house, like maybe just to work out, but I just really wanted to sort out my life. It felt weird because I was semi-invested into music, and then I met Kelly Rowland, and then I was like, whoa, this world is like so big that like the potential, the gravity of that situation could have been huge. Like, oh, maybe she'll invite me back to America. Like all these thoughts kind of go, but then on the other side, maybe nothing changes and you're just the same person that was just on a reality TV show, and you have to move on. And that's kind of like what happened to me. It definitely helped with like being known and being seen on TV. But yeah, it was just this kind of big, weird kind of thing. And I didn't know how to do it. I definitely cried to like help deal with it. But at the end, I was just like, okay, it is what it is. But I felt to deal with that, I needed time and space. And I called people and I talked to people, but I also needed to just sit there and think. Yeah. Which I feel is really hard to do these days with phones and with like busy lives and stuff like that. How did you deal with
being eliminated?
Yeah, going on and off TV because you know you were on all that kind of stuff.
Well, with X Factor, I had flirted with reality TV before. I'm not going to mention any shows, but I decided within myself I'm never doing that again. It's not my thing, because I was at a crossroads. Like, do I still even want to be a performer in any way? At that time, I was like, I'd been around. I was like hustling hard, like singing background vocals, touring, writing for people, It's tiring to do, you know, especially when it's not always like an immediate payoff. And so doing that while my second mom was sick at the time, she encouraged me actually just go for it, because I said no to the show. Someone that we know was working with the producers, and he was like, oh, you should come and audition. And I actually didn't turn up to the audition, the first one. I was having steak with my mates in Darling Harbour, and he's like, bro, isn't your audition today? I'm like, yep. I actually didn't turn up. And then it was a day later where I spoke to Audrey again, and she was in a bad way, my second mom, and she's like, you have to do it. You just have to go for whatever you want to do. Just put yourself at that life short, you know? And I gathered my tail from between my legs and was like, is that still available for me to come? And they flew me down for the very final day of auditions in Melbourne. Did it, got in, and just went for it. And it was an amazing experience. It was the hardest thing and the best thing one of the best things that I've done, because I lost my second mom the very first day of when filming started for the boot camp. But then equally, I got an amazing platform from it. I learned so much because it's a pressure cooker of performing live. Met some amazing friends. But when I was eliminated, it wasn't as hard as maybe what I thought, because I had lost Audrey. I actually felt more empowered, which sounds really like a bullshit answer, but it's I'm being honest with that.
No, I can see how I can see that.
And I'm resourceful. I got eliminated. I was in the top 10 and everything, which is great. I was in the top 10, which is great. And then also there was a tour for the top 5, which I wasn't part of. And I just, I'm like, I need to be on this tour. So I just hit people up and got on the tour, and so I grew my platform quite significantly at the time and was able to use that and then monetize my interests. So it was positive in that way. I did get burger thrown at me though. I was walking down the street, and like someone threw like a Big Mac at me. I'm like, wow. So
what?
I know, like,
why?
You're a piece of shit. You can't sing for shit. Like, you're not talented. Who do you think you are? Stranger, total stranger.
Crazy.
It got to the point where, so this is the aftermath, where I wouldn't go to the movies before the lights, went down, and I wouldn't leave before the lights, so that was my own projection, because I was paranoid. I was afraid, because you don't know like who's going to throw a bird. It's funny now, but at the time it was like,
but it's at the time that's
and
not
a waste
funny,
of a Big Mac too.
Seriously, man, what's that? 500 calories down the drain.
And down the drain. I mean, you could have just given it to me, but also, the tabloids were writing things about, a love triangle between me and Danny Minogue and another contestant. It's just like,
I got that too.
You know it is. To answer your question, it's a long-winded way of saying I didn't struggle as much with the elimination because of the loss of Audrey. And also it's a sting, because as you said, you're in front of the whole nation. So we're trained to believe, don't care what people think, just, focus on you. but I think we're wired for connection and to care. It's okay to care. I think it just depends. It depends on what you do with that and how you process it. But I think it's naive to say don't care, because how would we survive? It's not part of our survival.
Yeah, I've
So-
struggled with that a lot. Like I've had a lot of people give me that advice too. Like just
Yeah.
worry about your own competitions in the mirror. You know,
Yeah.
all this kind of stuff. And I'm like I thrive off that,
Yeah.
and that's why I think it's important for me to be around like people that challenge me because or people that are better than me, because then I actually rise up to that. Because I've tried let's just be a better Brock, and and for me that doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's really hard, and it may not be the healthiest motivation, but like for example, when Mum passed away, I had the most motivational years of my life because I was like, I'm gonna do you proud, and I still have that fire inside me, but I guess it's not as strong because 12 years have passed. But when that happened, I was doing anything and everything, staying up late, waking up early, not sleeping, doing all that, and maybe it's not the smartest way to go about it, but that motivation is what drove me. And then it's the same thing as in like when I was a personal trainer, I would compare myself to other trainers in the room and say, how busy are they? How good are they? How can I be better? So I think it can be healthy. I guess it just depends how you do it. I think it's not wise to do it to people that are on a different level to you. Like if they're in chapter 80 of their life and you're in chapter 30, and they have a house and 3 cars and this life that you like adore and they travel, and then you're this like student that has no money and you're like, man, I'm a failure, but like they were like that when they were your age. So I think that's when it gets dangerous, like comparison and things like that.
I also think social media is incredible, and also it's such a slippery slope when it comes to comparison, because we all post mainly, what I'd like to say generally, our best moments or like highlights.
Yeah.
And we know that logically, but we still, it's hard not to look, like visually, we're wired visually as men, particularly. If you look at something, your brain just automatically goes to comparison. So I get what you're saying about chapter 80 and chapter 30. I wonder if that would be different without social media and you're just meeting people and realizing that and having a conversation. Whereas looking, I've got 10 Bentleys behind me and I grind, you sleep, you sleep, I grind, all all that bullshit. So I think realizing that perception is very, very, very powerful, and don't underestimate what you're looking at. Like even with who I follow, I had to unfollow a lot of people not because they're bad people, but because you got to know your weaknesses. And if it's hard to look at that, if it's going to send you down a spiral of comparison, just don't look at it. Or for me, for example, I try not to schedule time on social media, almost like with my fasting. So like I have a window, jump in, do the work, get out, because if I start doom scrolling, man, then I get into my head, well, they got like better abs, or they're like more successful with the acting roles, or they can sing better. It's like, it's not, it's silly.
Yeah, that's tricky, man. I posted a photo and a video yesterday. So yesterday I was playing around with video editing apps and photo editing apps, and I managed to edit like my chest bigger, arms bigger, lats bigger, and I put it. Oh, my phone's recording. Sorry, man. Yeah. But it's subtle difference, but I look like a lot more muscular, and like if men saw it, it would be more desirable, like or more aspirational, or more motivational, and more like, oh, see that coach? He's huge. I want to look like him. Like and it's not too different, but it's different enough to slowly skew someone's perspective. And I think that's the danger of it. Like, and that's with editing, and you can edit videos now. Like that's crazy.
That's a trip.
Yeah, man. So I went into this app.
Yeah. And
like, it was like waist. So, and I'll just slide this thing up and down, and my waist was getting bigger and smaller.
On a video.
Yeah. So I posted it. Check out my Instagram after this. Or I'll show you. And yeah, I could slide it up and down. Same with like my butt. So you click this like butt thing. Yeah. And I just did it for lols.
Yeah.
I was just like, okay, I'll make it bigger. I'll just see how I could make it so extreme. And then there was like enhance this thing, and you can make the magnifier bigger or smaller.
Yeah.
And so I put it on my chest, then just put like enhance, and then my chest went bigger. Then I put it on my arms, and then I made that bigger. And then it was like skin. So I made it smooth. and then it was like taller. So I hit taller, and it just kind of like stretched my legs out a little bit, but still looked a little bit normal. But like I just looked and like it's a big difference, but each one is like small. And if you just saw the video on its own, you'd think, man, this guy like is like that's just him.
Yeah.
But I put them side by side so you could see the subtle difference. And it's tricky, man. Like you look at that, and it's that whole chapter 30, chapter 80 thing. Like someone starting off their transformation, just first day to the gym, would look at that edited video of Brock and go like, man, this is too much. Like I can't achieve that. I might just give up. Or like, wow, I want to be like him. But then that guy is a edited person. Like that's not attainable, achievable naturally.
Because it makes you also look at then, I mean, a lot of celebrities out there who say, oh, this is my skin routine. But then people will say in the comments, yeah, post it without the filter. Because they're putting a filter on.
I can't stand that.
You know what I'm saying? Or it's similar to even the Kardashians, like not calling them up, but people like that who people look up to, females mainly. But what if their videos are, like I had no idea you could even do that. Like edit videos. I'm like, that is crazy.
Yeah.
That is insane.
Yeah, that blew my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like when you see the celebrity photos and they're like 2002, 2012, 2022, like that, like, you know, then you can start to see the differences. But I think we're kind of throwing a lot of shade on social media, or like not shade, but just like, I guess talking about the challenges of it.
Yeah.
What do you think the benefits are? Because like you were saying before, it's like a double-edged sword. Like you can go down and doom scroll and feel terrible about yourself. And I was actually reading a study. I'll get to the positive side soon. But I was reading a study yesterday on filters and negative self-image. And people use filters because they have a negative self-image, and it makes them feel better about themselves when they post. And then other people, I guess, think that that's them. And then because they feel better about themselves, then they have to keep using the filter. But then their negative self-image keeps getting worse. But it's like weird, like their online persona is getting better or like increased, but then their self-image and what they think of themselves is actually getting worse. Yeah. And it was showing that in the study, and I'll put it somewhere like in the show notes or something. I wish I had more like specifics, but it was just like, it was more of a spiral than anything else. Like, so, and I feel like and this is just me personally speaking, not what the study said, but you just kind of like don't use it. Like, I feel like that's the best way for it. And it's challenging because, some people might feel like, well, I don't feel like posting if I can't use a filter or something like that. But then I think in the long term, it's not doing much for you. Like, I feel like in the long term, it will just get worse and worse and worse, because as we get older, we may need, like people send me things like, oh, you should get Botox and stuff.
They say that?
Yeah, I'm like, I don't want to, man. I'm like,
wowzers.
Yeah, like this guy said to me the other day, he's like, oh, if only, because I just like shaved my head and I posted like getting a shaved head. And he's like, oh, if only you got Botox here and like got a filler here, like that would make you look so much better. And I was like, man, I can't believe this guy. Yeah, I was like,
this guy.
Number one, why would you send that? And like number two, shut up, man.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to do that.
It's true.
Like, you know, that's how you want to do it and stuff. But yeah. Anyway, that's the kind of negative side out of there. Like, I feel like it can be a spiral, but it can also be beneficial. And ultimately, it's led to us doing work, doing jobs that we potentially wouldn't have been able to do like 10 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago, like depending on which platforms you utilize.
Yeah.
Like, what would you say the biggest positive of, like, I guess, putting your life out there publicly is?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is connection. And I've said that word a lot during this podcast, but it's true. Like, you get to connect with people in a way that you might not ever get to do, because it makes the world so small. You can post one photo, one video with a message. And not to say that I'm not trying to be a role model. It's not like, that's not what I mean. It's more, I can share my work. I can share my day. I can share the things that I find funny, things I find meaningful, things I feel strongly about as well. And I think that's one thing. Another thing is, for me, I make an income from it. So it's part of my job, which is a privilege to be able to say. So connection, financially, keeping in touch with even like family and friends, it's fun in that way. I think as well, it can unify people around causes, around good things, because there's so much happening in the world, as we know, which is an understatement. I think that's awesome for bringing people together around something. There are so many positives, and we have been talking about the struggles because they're valid. But equally, it's such an amazing luxury and privilege to have something like social media today. Like we can just, with one click of a button, we can have such a positive effect on someone's life. Like people that have come up to me saying, "You'll never know how much this meant to me," or this song, or this post that you talked about this. You're not thinking about that when you're doing it. You're just creating.
Just doing
and
your
I
thing.
think that's really powerful. Really powerful. What about you?
I think one thing, and this like once again ties into my work. When I was first becoming a personal trainer in Auckland, I was at Queen Street City Fitness. Like that's where I started off, and I was face to face. And I mentioned Auckland, it'll tie back in later, but I moved to Gold Coast and then I moved to Sydney. And by the time I'd moved to Sydney, I had gotten so busy and people were messaging me, "Hey, can I work with you and train with you?" And I got this message from someone who was actually following me throughout the whole time while I was doing music and on X Factor and Morehouse and all this kind of stuff. And she was like, "Can you train me?" And I was like, sure, and I didn't even know how to do online personal training at the time, but I said yes, because I'm kind of a say yes, figure it out later type of person. Not that I'm trying to like scam anyone or like, not have the chops to do it, but I was like, yeah, I can definitely do it. I just I didn't have a website or anything at the moment, but it was a Facebook message. And this girl had anorexia. And I was like, I said yes, but I also said, like, you understand that this is not just a personal training, a solution. It's, like it's a team thing. And she's like, yeah, I have, a psychologist and I have this and I have that. So she had a team and like even a nutritionist to try but they couldn't, I guess, communicate with her in an effective way for her to understand that she needed to, like, ultimately, and this is not trying to say that, just eat more. Like, it's not that simple, but ultimately that's what would help her on her journey and trying to overcome obstacles of food and good foods, bad foods. And I think that's probably the most positive thing that has happened just like out of the top of my mind, because I would never have the ability to help someone in a different country through that. And I'm not saying I'm solely responsible, but we achieved a transformation that was so unique. I've never had another one like that, because she came from this position where she was severely underweight, where she came to a place where she was at a healthy weight and she was training and she was enjoying training, and she was no longer training to burn calories and just running just to smash herself and then undereat. Like she was like, I'm loving avocados at the moment. And I was like, yeah, awesome. Like I was
so cool.
I was always so clear that I'm giving advice that is from a personal training perspective, not a, qualified person to deal with anorexia. But I was like, I'll definitely jump in the team and help. And it was so fulfilling giving feedback. And like, I would do a lot of video calls, like with her and like phone calls and stuff, just to really get to the bottom of it. Not that I was, once again, qualified to do this, but it was just so fulfilling to me. And that's what really stemmed, or I guess founded, what I do today. It's like on the back of that. And even though I'm not like dealing with people in this specific situation, it's that feeling that I'm always chasing of like overcoming something and becoming better and dealing with that. So that has been a big positive for me. Like, and I know that that's just my work, but like I said before, I wouldn't have that opportunity if there was no Facebook, because that's where it stemmed from. And then Instagram came, because I was like you, I just had Facebook and Instagram just because. Yeah. Like I remember when it first came out, I just posted a photo with my friends at Sushi Cafe. We were just eating a rice ball, and I was like, yeah, I was
tree.
It was like that.
Yeah.
It was just like, this is what I'm doing. And then when it started to have more of a purpose behind it, and it was like, oh, well, like I have this knowledge base and I'm going to start sharing it. And then it, opened me up to training people, now, all over the world and stuff like that. But that's probably the biggest positive for me, is like, actually, I'd say it's added to my purpose in life, where instead of coaching 20 to 30 people in a gym, which still has great purpose and meaning, I always felt like I was called to more and to help more people. So, now I'm able to do that through social media. And that's probably been the biggest positive. Like I wake up early and I I'm ready to go, you know. And if social media wasn't here, I probably still would have that in a different job, but I'd say that's the biggest positive.
That's actually really powerful. And when you were saying it's just my job, I just was thinking it's not just your job. Like, I think it's so good that you find meaning in what you do, because a lot of people don't. A lot of people are just chasing paying their mortgage or whatever, and they hate their job. So it's so cool to hear that story. I had no idea about the anorexia situation. And like, with having your online clients, do you have a cap of like how many you can take on? Because that's like a lot of emotional energy too. Then,
Yeah.
right? How do you do that?
Yeah. So that's why I created different products. Yeah. So like when I first started, I was just like, I'll help you one-to-one, like physically. And like, even though it was online, I was like, I'll write your program tailored to you. So, you know, if you're from Asia or Europe or, you know, Africa, I would contact you and we would like work together one-to-one. But yeah, as you know, it's a lot. Like, if I have someone with anorexia and like another person with, you know, obesity, or another person with this that has struggles with their family and trying to eat, you know, and then I'm just like this, you know, you kind of feel like a therapist more than anything sometimes. Yeah. But yeah, it takes a lot of time and emotional toll. I've always been very good at switching that off though. Like,
that's good.
Yeah. And what I don't know how I got there. I think once again, it comes back to the whole losing my mum thing.
Yeah. How do you how do you just turn that off? How do you get, you know?
I really care about my clients, like while I was working, but I think I was just I've always been so busy, and this could be a strength and a weakness, but I think I was always so busy not to think about it. Like, I was just like, I'll deal with it when it's in front of me, because I'd finish work and I wouldn't sit down and think, oh, my client, this and that. Like even though I obviously care for them a lot and I would go over and beyond for them, I was more like, oh, now I have to do this, and now I have to post on social media, now I have to write this caption, now I have to write this email, now I have to write a program. And there was always this kind of like thing going on. Yeah.
What about like your work life? I hate this question, but I'm curious. Like, how do you work life balance? Like, do you have a system that works for you?
Figuring it out.
Yeah.
Figuring it out.
Because you're a busy boy.
Yeah. But I think a lot of people are busy. I also think a lot of people aren't very effective with their time. It's kind of like half working, half scrolling sometimes. Man, side note, I will answer your question, but like, my wife and I went to the chemist yesterday to look for something for our daughter. And she was on her phone behind the till. First of all, that step one, that annoys me. And then she looked up like annoyed, kind of like, how long are you going to be? And I was like, oh, do your job. Like, you're not getting paid to go on Instagram. So that annoys me. But yeah, frustrating. But anyway, like this whole balance thing, like I think we're kind of, we're figuring it out. Like at the moment, because we have a daughter, she's fresh, she's like 4 months old, and we're trying to figure out, you know, like for me, what time should I get up, and am I looking after the baby so my wife can go to the gym? And she's amazing. She's super understanding. But yeah, it's a journey, man. Like I don't have much time for extracurricular activities. Like I'm not really kind of, you know, just sitting around pondering a lot, but it's, I don't think I've sorted it out, and I don't think you ever do. I think it's always kind of trying to figure it out. It's a balance.
Proteina.
Kettlebell. Yeah, kettlebell. Kettlebell with an E.
That's such a great name.
Yeah, thanks. It's just a combo of personal training and my baby. I think I'm figuring it out. You know, it's always a struggle. You know, sometimes things pop up, and I'm like to my wife, you know, I have to work late, or I have to wake up early and go. Like last week, I had to wake up and do some personal training in the city, so I did that. And you know, sometimes things pop up, so it's never fixed. So I'd say my answer is like I'm not sorting. It's not a work-life balance where I'm happy. Yeah. But I don't think it ever is, and it's really challenging when you love what you do. Yeah. I think it'd be much easier if I had a 9 to 5 and worked for someone to switch off and be like, I work 40 hours and then I'm just work. I'm all family. Because work is on Saturday and work is on Sunday for me at the moment. So I'm trying to get to like a more official type of work-life balance, but it never really happens. Like I'm like, oh, I'll just get home, I'll post earlier, and I'll just like, you know, from 6 p.m. or from 7 p.m. I'm just all my family. But then I'm like, oh man, someone just hit me up for a program. I'm just going to write a program. You know, it's, how about you?
Well, do you like switch up? Like, do you have like a cap off, like no phone time now for social media every day, or is it kind of like whatever?
Yeah, I don't.
You don't? Okay.
I advise other people to, but and that sounds really. I'm like,
do as I say, not as I do.
But that's what I say. Like, I'm completely honest because I'm like, like this is good. I personally don't do that. Like sleep 7 to 9 hours. I'd love to. Like before the kid, I would do that a lot with my wife. Like we ended up having dinner at 5 p.m., like bed by 9. Like we were locked in.
Yeah, wow.
And then now that's challenging. But I've never really slept that much. So I've said to my clients, like, this is what you do. I said, personally, I don't do this myself. I've got a lot of things to do. I try my best, but I usually don't hit it. And that's all I expect from them too. And the same thing with phones. I've always had this, I guess, sleeping talent where I can sleep wherever I need to. So I'm just like sometimes because I'm posting and stuff and getting back to DMs and it was bad. I'd always give the advice like keep the bed for like sleeping and intimacy, and then keep like work for the desk or whatever. But
you stuck to that, didn't you?
But I'm lying in bed doing story questions, like answering things. And I'm like, like I'm not sticking to it, but I'd always be transparent. Like I'd never lie and say, guys, that's what I do. Like you should try it and you'll be as great as me. I was like, man, I just do that. Like, and then I'd just sleep with my phone beside me, but like now I do it. I leave it out there and I come back into the room and it's like, there's no phones and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's been a journey, man. There's definitely like, I like the idea of this structure and this routine and like I go to work and then I stop working. And that's part of why, I'm building the Team Brock Ashby HQ so that it's a place where I like go, I smash it and then I leave and I'm like, I'm kind of done. Yeah. But it's a struggle. How about you, man? Have you got a structure? Have you got a routine?
Yeah. Well, you know what? When my first job ever was working at a library. I think I told you this before, but when I was working there, I found this book about 7 habits of highly effective people.
That's the first book I've ever read.
Really? That was the first book I ever read.
No way. Yeah. Stephen Covey.
Yeah, exactly.
Man.
How good is that?
Woo.
And so the big rocks and the pebbles and everything and the schedule, that has never left me. And I changed the terms and everything, but I do
make it more you.
I do like structure. I feel like there's more freedom within structure. But my personality as well, which I continue to work through, is I can catastrophize when the plan changes. And I'm way better now, but you got to realize like life happens and you can't control everything. I was such a control freak. I wouldn't engage with anything if I couldn't control the outcome. And that bleeds into a schedule and program. Like, man, like someone could be late or you could be late or maybe you couldn't put your jacket on when you were going across the stage or whatever it is,
Or you're singing Cisco and they say no.
Yeah. Forget your lines, whatever. So learning just to kind of go, sometimes life just happens, and it ties into what you're saying about it's constantly evolving. It's just finding it's going ebb and flow. Trying to be wise about it, trying to be mindful about it, but realizing the pendulum's always gonna swing, and that's just life. Like, it's exactly. And sometimes I'm busier. I don't like to say busy. Sometimes I'm busier. Sometimes I'm not. So when I'm not as busy, I can structure more. But then you just got to roll with the punches. That's just the industry I'm in too. But I do prefer, like I have a schedule for every single day, even when I'm not on set or even if I'm not traveling. It just helps me to feel a sense of productivity and like I'm getting things done and not waiting or being passive, because I'm very like driven and
I think it, like, to take it even further, not saying that this is what you do, but I find a sense of purpose in routine as well, because I'm like, I have this thing to do. If I'm very like, I'll just wake up and see what happens, I feel like I'm a bit of a mess. I'm like, I don't know what to do with myself. And that's why I like having some like training every day, or like going for 10,000 steps every day, or like having these daily things that I do where I'm like, I have something to do. Because when I don't have anything to do, I don't think I'm the best Brock that I can be. It's weird. I'm so used to doing things, and I like the feeling of progress and feeling like something's happening. And when I don't have that, like the other day was my wife's birthday, and it was so much fun with family and all that kind of stuff. But in the back of my head, I didn't do any exercise. Yeah. Like I didn't do jiu-jitsu. I didn't train. And then the next day I felt off. I felt a bit flat. And then I like trained and did jiu-jitsu on the same day and I felt amazing. And I was like, oh yeah, like, you know, this sense. Yeah. And like, it's a bit of an unhealthy perspective too, because it's like, bro, just enjoy your wife's birthday. And I did, but there's this sort of subcategory in my mind that's like, hey man, should we go lift some weights, or do you think we could duck out for an hour and just go lift some weights? Like, yeah, that kind of voice in the back of my head.
I agree with you. I also find more of a sense of purpose with the routine, and over time, like I've learned to zoom out and kind of go, for example, if I'm going to New Zealand to see my family, usually there's a work thing in there, but if I zoom out and look at life, hopefully it's a long life, I go, you know what? Maybe don't be as strict with your eating window or your training. Go hang out more, because this is for a moment and then you're back to your normal work. So it's about perspective as well, because it can be so easy to feel insufficient or like you're not doing, and it's the whole hustle culture thing. And that's also, it's important to try to zoom out, and also planning to do nothing is also good. Meaning like today I'm planning to have more social. Today I'm planning to, I'm going to just like smash like a Big Mac combo with the McChicken, McSpicy, double quarter pounder, and like watch,
let's go.
Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's like about having a perspective about it.
Yeah. I think that's an important thing that I've tried to do as well, is like schedule the fun things. Because if you don't make time for them, they kind of just don't happen. Like it's crazy how like rigorous you can be with your schedule. Like I got work, and then I'm going to do emails, then I'm going to do a podcast, and then I'm going to record this and that. And then it's like, man, where's your wife time at? Or like, you know, where's your friends, you know, seeing your friends in the movies time and stuff. And then it's like, oh, it just happens, you know, like it might, but it doesn't. And then you realize 6 months have gone and you haven't seen your like best friend or something like that. It's pretty dangerous. I want to quickly touch on your fasting and like your nutrition and your training and stuff like that, because I know you're super into it and you've tried certain things. And also maybe we can touch on your experience with food. Like I kind of touched on it with the banter with BC, and I don't want to repeat and just say the same information, but like what are you currently doing with your food? Because obviously I don't like this saying, but it's kind of like your body is your business card type of thing, you know, like you have to, you know, be healthy and look after yourself. So what are you currently doing for that?
So I do intermittent fasting. So basically, for anyone who doesn't know what that is, it's basically just delaying when I start eating, and I eat within a certain amount of time every day. But everyone fasts, like when you're sleeping, you're fasting. It's a way to tap into stored fat and promotes autophagy, muscle growth, and I feel better personally. It's not for everyone. I feel giving my gut a rest is good. And it takes the decision fatigue out of like, what am I going to eat? No. Because I used to do the whole, back in the day, 6 meals a day, body for life. Since I was 15, I was like right into everything. Yeah. I've done it all and haven't done keto though. Don't know about that. But don't bother. And then for the longest time, I did paleo. That worked for me because I feel like genetically, like I gained muscle really quickly with my business and my job. You got to be leaner. Like you don't have to be, but it's affected my income and my job. I'll never forget, a bit of a sidebar, when I first got into modeling and I turned up and it was like 18, 19 and I started to fill up a little bit more. Not fat by any means, but the agent said to me, "Perfection is desired, darling. You got to lose some weight." And that just like completely changed my life in that moment, because I developed body dysmorphia for the longest time. And still to this day, if I'm not careful, I can get into diet brain. So that's a sidebar, but that's when I started eating paleo to sort of change my body shape. And then I got into intermittent fasting because I still want to eat what I want to eat. I'm a foodie. Not everybody thinks that's a thing, but I love food so much and I don't want to give it up. So what I do is when I'm filming something or I've got a shoot, I know what works for my body. So for me personally, you can eat whatever you want, ice cream guy. But if I eat a lot of carbs, even the day before, I just look more puffy and just more inflamed. It's not fat. It's just what it is. Yeah. So I try to keep things pretty clean. Clean meaning like protein and vegetables like mushrooms, avocado. And then I'm just a bit more just tighter and just together, and I can smash my shoot, do that. And then afterwards, I always reward myself with a treat. So after I'd have a shoot, I'll have something that I really want to eat. And it just keeps a bit more of a healthy... I don't think it's wise to restrict yourself from anything. You can still have what you want to have. But for me, the way to do that is with fasting. For some people, they can just have a cookie every 2 hours. I can't do that because I'll eat 20 bags. So that's what I do. In terms of food, I mainly stick to a lot of steak, chicken, a lot of protein. Being South African, steak is our meat and chicken's our vegetables. So a lot of protein. And then I do drink a lot of alcohol. To some people, I drink a couple glasses of wine at least most days with dinner, but I enjoy it. And I seem to metabolize it quite well. I also train just 3 days a week in the gym, which is not much, for like 25 to 30 minutes, which is not much. Genetically, it's worked for me. I know that I could do so much more, and I do want to have like that role where I can beef up and get like as massive as I can. I'd love that. I've never had a PT. I'll have to hit you up at some point for that. But 3 times a week, move my like lifting, pushing tin, and then 3 times a week doing some sort of cardio. But it's not because of my 1.5 lungs. I don't do long distance running anymore. I'll do hill sprints, so explosive, or I'll just compound my activities and I'll listen to a podcast or think while walking. So that's my weekly, really.
So what do you do in the 25, 30-minute lifting sessions? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, so
I'm not like analyzing everything. I'm just like, I just want to know.
I feel judged.
You shouldn't do that.
Yeah, I don't bench. I do 4 sets. So 4 sets of 30 push-ups, shoulder presses with 20 kg weights. I'll do dips and I'll do tricep. You know what that's called? That I'll do my hammer curls and also barbell bicep curls and squats, bodyweight squats. I do weighted deadlifts and ab work. And I just get in and out. I know it's like kind of laughable because it's not that long, but it's worked for me. I do want to step it up because I feel like that's quite, I can feel myself plateauing a little bit, but it does the job for me at the moment.
And is it the same session each time? Or is it varied?
I've started doing more leg work because I want to get my legs looking a bit better. But it's usually the same. I do want to switch it up because, as you know, our bodies adapt pretty quickly. Yeah. So I do want to disrupt that a bit, but that's my daily sort of weekly situation.
It doesn't always have to be different exercises. I think that's one thing that people confuse with workouts is that it needs to be different every single day. I think there's a benefit to changing it after 4 to 6 weeks because that gives you time to plateau. A plateau is a good thing. It's what you want. But then you have to change it after that or else you literally just stay at that plateau or potentially decrease. So I would like sometimes you can go from, say, push-ups 4 to, 4 times 30 reps or whatever. And then you could do 4 times 35 like the next month. And that's even that's a difference there. I think that's one thing that's really underutilized with people because like even when I write programs and people are paying me to write programs and I write a program, they're like, oh, like, how come I'm doing this and that? And I'm like, I'm not coming from a place of arrogance, but I'm like, don't question the programming. Like, they're like, oh, it's too simple. Like, I'm only doing 5 exercises. Yeah. Like, that's crazy. And I'm like, you don't have to do 10. Like, you don't have to do F45 type sessions every day. If you want to do that, that's fine. But that's not how you kind of like structurally make progress. Like you have to do the same things, like just like with singing. Like if you're just trying to like learn every single thing with your singing every single day, you'll probably just be like kind of average. But if you're really like, this week I'm working on this week I'm working on that, and like you have strategy behind it, that's like the most effective way to do it. But I think 3 days is heaps.
Sometimes 3 to 4 days a week, but usually in between I'll have a break. Like I'll give my body time to recover. And the rest of it for me, like I definitely, and again, this is just for me, I'm not preaching to anyone. I definitely think fasting has just completely changed my body and the way I look. Like even in my 20s, I was so much more stocky and like training way more actually. But I just think it has worked for me. Again, like it's not for everyone. Yeah.
I struggled with it personally.
Yeah.
I tried it when I was was when I was living in Auckland and I was personal training, I really struggled with not thinking about food. So you said you're like, it's all good because I just like don't worry about it. Like, you don't have to think about breakfast and all that. But I would be like, because I was so hungry. And I think for me, I wasn't eating enough when I was eating. And I was like, I was overdoing it too for my level of activity. And like I was like training twice a day and all this kind of stuff. And I was trying to fast. I got to this point where I was trying to fast for like 22 hours, 20 hours daily. Yeah, and, and I only have this 2 to 4 hour eating window. But in that 2 to 4 hour eating window, I couldn't eat enough. I was like so full. Yeah. And I was eating vegetables and meat. So I'd have like 1,000 calories and I'd be stuffed. Yeah. But then that's all I ate that day. So I'd wake up absolutely starving and I'd be like, oh, I'm going to have a green tea and black coffee until I can eat. And I would train before I was eating as well. So I was like getting weak. And this was probably when you saw me in Auckland. You're like, man, this guy looks exhausted. Like I was like, just do it. Like, cause I was still at that mindset, like just work hard, just grind it out. This is good. And for me, that didn't work. But I do give that option to people because sometimes people prefer it, like you, like not to worry about it. Just wake up, get a black coffee or whatever and just go, or like have water all day and all that kind of stuff. And they just, for some people, it helps with calorie control as well. Like people eat too much and then you just say, hey mate, just like start eating at midday, finish at 8 or 6 or whatever. And then they're like, oh, I'm starting to lose weight. It's like, well, you've cut out a meal, and that definitely helps for them. What other food, I guess, strategies have you tried?
Well, I've done this.
And what was your experience like? Yeah, like positive, negative.
Yeah, well, I've done the 6 meals thing a day because, you're taught, which is just not accurate.
Fuel the metabolism.
Yeah, which is...
stoke it up like a fire.
So I did that, and then I did... Haven't tried the vegetarian route because, again, South African steak is a, protein, chickens are veggies. But I'm not knocking it. I used to be a bit more like, oh, that's like, it's like wow, whatever. But it's not. It's actually... I feel good when I just eat vegetables sometimes, and I know it's probably better for the planet and whatnot. I do love fish. I haven't tried any other diets per se. And I mean, there was a point where I tried to count calories, but I do think a calorie is not a calorie is not a calorie. Like if I had 100 calories of chips, my body will process 100 calories of potatoes differently or of mushrooms. Like I get it, but it's still has different effects in your body, so it didn't really work for me. I do probably eat more calories now than if I ate like throughout the day, which is really wild to say, but it also just for me it kind of makes me not be afraid of just eating. I don't necessarily count the window, I more just count the fast. So if I want to eat longer, I'll just do that. It's not like
I feel
rigid.
I feel like with nutrition, this is a big mistake I've made before, is like the more restrictions you have on yourself, the more you have this underlying tendency to want to rebel. Yeah. Or like there's just too much restriction so you can't handle it. I had that massively. I think for me, when I was intermittent fasting, it wasn't necessarily that. It was more so the lack of calories, so the like restriction of food. And I've talked about this a lot, but yeah, I once restricted down to 1,500 and I was doing that daily for like
6 foot guys. It's not a
3
lot.
to 6 months, man. Yeah. I was doing cardio at night. I was lifting weights during the day and I was just like whittling away. This was when I was in Morehouse. Because
did you feel amazing doing that?
So much energy, man. I was jumping. Yeah. And I think it was because, and I say I think because I may have misinterpreted something. And I can't remember because it was so long ago, but I had a feeling, or I had a conversation with someone that said like, you're too big, from the record label, from Sony. And I was like so desperate to be successful and, be the next One Direction. Yeah. All this kind of stuff. So I wanted this kind of, cause I look like a rugby bro. Like
it's your genetics too, man. So it's like,
man. But the Morehouse Video Titanium, our first one that went kind of big in New Zealand, like my traps look huge, and like I was eating whatever I wanted. I was training, but I felt great. Yeah. And then after I posted it and we like had the meeting with Sony and stuff, like they were like, hey man, like, you should kind of be cool if you looked a bit more, less like a rugby player. So I took that to heart as a young, like 18-year-old. Yeah. And I just did like 1 meal a day. I did like 1,500 calories and I lost, like 21 kilos, like really quick. And that's a lot of, man, like, our baby's like 5 kilos. That's like four, four babies, man.
4 kettlebells. It's like
I lost 4 kettlebells, man. Yeah.
Man.
So, and yeah, it was like, that was over restriction. And then but I had so much determination that I did it, but I was weak. Yeah. I was lethargic. I couldn't really hold up conversations. I was trying to perform and it was like off, and it just wasn't a good place. Like I definitely took that restriction too far. And I feel like as soon as I had that moment where I was like, oh, I don't necessarily have to eat so little. I don't necessarily have to take away all these foods. I had that good food, bad food mentality. So I'd only have brown rice. I couldn't touch white rice. No way. Like brown bread, no white bread, and no carbs. And I'd only have tuna and water because oil was the devil and all this kind of stuff, It was a box that I couldn't get out of.
And I can actually vouch for this because I will never forget. I was telling Brock before we started recording, I went to catch up with him in Auckland ages ago, and he was crossing the street and just looked so weak, like literally so lethargic, like you're about to fall over, and so thin, like you look completely different, and just not happy. You know what I mean?
Man, I remember in Auckland, I bought a pair of jeans that were 28 waist.
Wow.
Afterwards, I found out they were girls' jeans. And I was just like, man, like, well, there probably is girls' jeans that fit me now, but I just thought like at that time, it was just so crazy because it just fit the whole thing. I was just like shopping. The sizing looked more like my size, where generally the guy's sizing is bigger. And I was just like, man, that looks like what I'd fit. And I was like, man, 28, 69 kilos. I was just,
that's so light.
I was very lethargic, man. Like looking back, I'm like, man, I feel sorry for everyone that had to deal with me because I thought I was doing this awesome stuff. Like I'm so this and I'm so committed, and all you guys are just lazy. Like I had like just put myself in this weird mentality, this weird world, and I suffered for it. Like looking back now, I feel like if I fueled myself properly, I still could have achieved a leaner physique that didn't look so rugby and like done it healthily, because it was like, it was pretty unhealthy, man.
How did you explain it to people if people wanted to maybe say, let's go and eat, and if you didn't want to, like, would you make excuses? How did you deal with the lie of it, I guess?
It was bad. I would just say no. And in my head I was like, it's just because I'm committed. I almost didn't feel guilty because I felt like I was doing such a good thing for myself. And like, Nate, like he would take us out and he'd be like, bro, like I'm getting dinner. Because also I was like a poor kid. Yeah. Well, like, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to sound like my life was terrible, but like I didn't have money. I was a student. I didn't have money to go out and eat and stuff like that. And he's like, man, I'll pay for you. And I was like, I can't go. Like I can't eat anything. Like the menu is like too high in calories. I can't eat anything. And I was just, sometimes I'd go and just have water. I'd literally just sit there and have water and have a green tea. And I was like, looking back, I'm like, man, I missed out on so many like awesome memories. Yeah. I'd say no to the movies because I know that at the movies people be like, have some popcorn, have an ice cream. And I'd just like try and avoid it. So I'd just go home and work and write songs and like do all this kind of stuff because I was like, I'm just more committed than everyone, and that's what's going to get me successful and all this. Well, I remember
because on one of your birthdays in Sydney, I think it was your first birthday in Sydney, you wouldn't have your birthday cake.
Yeah.
It's like, then it was real. It's when it's real to you, that's what it is. There's no other way. But hindsight, for me, I used to, looking back, I can see now how bad it was. I would lie and say, oh, I've got to help my parents do this, or actually lie about it. Not even just to kind of get out of not explaining. It's pretty bad.
Yeah, man. But like, it's so real to you because, once again, it's us. It's not this thing that we're creating. It's, we have to stand on stage, or we have to face the record label and say, this is my shape. Or you have to stand in front of this modeling like panel, and then they have to go, you're too big, like, with modeling especially, like I've done a small bit that's, nothing compared to what you've been doing. But like I got told, I was too short, or like, I was too this, or I was too muscular, I was too big, and all that kind of stuff. And like, number one, you can't change your height. So you're like, man, am I just like a bad person? Like, am I just an ugly person? Or because like modeling is literally your face. It's like,
it's what you look like.
Yeah, like that's they'll see you and just go like, no, and be like, move. And you're like, oh, okay. Like, okay.
Oh, damn. Okay.
Nice to meet you.
Savage.
And they don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a tricky industry to be in, man.
It's also gives me perspective now because I can again zoom out and go, this is just what it is. Like, and for people going into the entertainment industry, it's brutal. And so much of it really is about things you can't control, like your appearance. So just keeping that in mind. I'm not trying to discourage anyone absolutely go for what your dreams are and what you want, also realize so much of it is going to be out of your control because it's about what you're born with.
It's
as
predetermined.
Well. So just be careful with that.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of social media too, though, because like if you don't have this like classic commercial look, you can create your own show, or you can, make your own skits. You can have your own TV show. You can model your own clothes. You can do whatever. I think that's another positive thing, which is really cool. Like, like it's like, look at Ed Sheeran. Like, he's not your classical good-looking dude. He's like this. Like, if you look from outside, like kind of like, redhead guy who kind of could look quite awkward and stuff like that. Like he's, like he's blowing up. I think like, not that he got known by social media, but like that's kind of cool as well to give people that kind of hope that they can do whatever they want, because it is like that, like you walk in and they go, no, you're not the right look. And you're like, oh shit, man.
Without even giving people a chance, but you can.
I haven't even sung yet. Yeah, you're good, man. You're good. Yeah. I want to wrap up with just 3 questions. First one, is there a book, and I know you mentioned 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, so that could be a good one, but is there a book that has made you a better person? This is the Better with Brock podcast. I'm all about helping people to become better, whether that's physical, spiritual, social, mental. Is there any book that's helped you to become better that's like clicked?
I'd probably say the same thing, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, because it's the only book that is throughout my whole life is stuck with me, and those principles have helped shape the man that I am today and how I approach my life. Yeah.
What's like the biggest thing that you took away from that book?
The power of ownership and taking action, and that there is so much that you can control with your time and your actions,
Yeah. I think one thing that I took away from it was put first things first. I think that might be point number 1. I can't remember, but I still struggle with that today. If I have a big thing to do, it's really easy to send these emails that could be sent at the end of the day, but I'm like, oh, this is so important because you're almost nervous to like make a phone call or to do whatever you need to do. I feel like that really stuck with me in that book.
It's procrastinating the inevitable. It's like,
but also you feel like it's like a cheat code because you're still doing something productive. So you're like, you say to yourself, you're still being productive. So you're all good. But deep down, if you go another level deeper, you know that you're just being trying to avoid it.
Yeah. I get it.
Yeah. All right. Second thing. What is a quote that has helped make you better, or one quote that's just like really stuck in your head that you refer back to, or one that you heard that like really lit a fire to your motivation?
I feel like I've got like when Brock came on for Banter with BC, the thought bubbles. I'm like trying to think. I think it's something that I subscribe to, but it's not like by anyone. But your value is in who you are, not what you do. That's something that I have to keep reminding myself of, and it's very important for me personally to stick to that.
Yeah. Well, once again, because that's like for us, we are almost what we do. Yeah. It's like you are Barry Conrad, you are the singer, you are the person. So I find that very tricky because especially when I was younger, I was like trying to achieve things as opposed to be a person or focus on the person who achieves those things. Yes. It was more so like, hey Brock, who are you? And I'd be like, oh yeah, I've done this and I've done that. And I like kind of try and look back on the things that I've done as opposed to like answering the question like, who are you?
It's also the thing about having come close to KOing, you see life in a different way, meaning like if everything's taken away, who actually are you? If I couldn't ever be in front of a camera or have a mic or anything, am I happy with my relationships? Like, what do I like to do? What makes me feel really happy and excited? It's not just about the things and stuff. So the value, I mean, more that as well. Like, what's my essence? Like, who am I? And I think I have to remind myself of that every day, because it's all made up. It's like, I like to say that as a joke, but it's like so much is made up. It's like society and whatever. So at the end of the day, people aren't going to remember roles or songs necessarily. Going to be like, oh, well, Barry made me feel this way, good or bad or whatever, indifferent, you know?
And that takes a lot of time to search, to figure out who you are, because it's such a deep thing. Like, who are you? It's like, whoa, man.
Who are you, Brock?
It's like,
Bok.
I'm just, are you Brock or are you Bok?
Yeah.
One more question. What is one thing you do every day that helps you become better?
One thing that I do every day that helps me to become better is verbalize something that I'm grateful for. And usually that's in the beginning of the day, not at the end, because then that just sets up my day and the way I look at the world. It's easy to go like at the end of the day, but I think at the start, okay, what am I thankful for today? Okay, just one thing, not overcomplicate it. And that puts things in perspective a little bit more, and realizing, because that also makes me go, it's not just about me. Like everyone actually is busy, has problems, has worries and joys. So it just changes the lens of life, like how I look at life and how I approach my day. Yeah.
It's crazy that you say that.
Yeah.
Because most people that I've asked say something related to gratitude.
Yeah.
And I developed like a formula that kind of came from when I was back at church praying every morning to set my day up. And now I have this kind of gratitude list that I read through. And yeah, it's the same thing. It gets the focus off yourself for the day. Like, obviously you have to do things, so you are focused on yourself, but like mentally you're looking at the day through like something that's not like, oh, okay, what does Brock need to do? It's more so like, I'm so happy that I'm alive, or I'm able-bodied. I get to do what I want through the day, or I have a wife, I have a daughter, kettlebell and
Proteina.
I have a kettlebell to swing around. And like all this kind of stuff. And then like I kind of focus on the things that I need to do, or things that I want to achieve as well. And I say these things. It's so cheesy, man. And like I say it out loud when I'm like on my own. If I'm around people, I just kind of, sometimes I get Siri to read it out to me while I'm driving, or like while
are grateful for.
Because I've written it all down, and I just get her to read it back to me, and even that lifts my spirits. And like I have this thing where I say like, I am this, like I am hardworking, I am generous, I am diligent, I am, I do what needs to be done, like type of thing. I put first things first. That's in there, like all this kind of stuff. And it's very cheesy, but it's kind of like it's good, man. You're like listening to it, like internally, your spirit's like jumping around like Rocky, like ready to go. And then you go into the day and you feel like optimistic. Because I find when I don't do that, like I try to do it every day. There's days where I don't, and those days just kind of fly by, and I'm just like, it wasn't an intentional, purposeful day.
I feel like, I don't know if you agree with this, but it's like having that portion of the day at the beginning of the day that you carve out for you, for others as well. Do you know what I mean? Like you take in that time before the world can make your mind up, and reaching for that thing, like actually walking away or sitting in bed, going for a walk to the ocean and saying whatever it is, like getting Siri to read to you, or being grateful for something. And that sounds so cheesy to say that and so cliche, but it really, really does change your day. And I'm a big believer in just carving out the first part of your day for yourself, because you're just better for it, and people are better off when you do that, So,
and I think doing it before you touch your phone is super important, because there's days where I'm like, I'll just check my phone, check my emails, and then I'll do it, and then I never do it, and then that is setting yourself up for something unknown. Like, because then you could open your phone and you don't know what you're going to see. You could see a comment that says, you're the ugliest person that does this, or you're so stupid and like you don't know anything, you're this and that, and then your day's set by that comment. So it's like if you have control over that, you can set the bar way up here as opposed to like down here if you read a comment that says that you're this and you're that and it affects you. And your brain is so fresh when you wake up. I feel like it's like a sponge in the morning, and like, you know, towards the end of the day you have all these things that have come in, so the sponge is getting full, but the first thing that you absorb kind of like dictates how that sponge is throughout the day.
I totally agree, 100%.
So where can people find you if they want to know more about what you're doing and follow you on socials? You
can find me at Barry_Conrad on Instagram and Twitter, Barry Conrad Official on Facebook, barryconradofficial.com for my website. So
And
hit me up.
Is there any projects you want to talk about or kind of like shine light on what you're doing?
Well, look forward to the We Are Lonely podcast coming out soon. For those who are old enough, look forward to Erotic Stories coming out very soon as well. And catch my show Banter with BC online. Yeah.
Awesome, man. We'll leave it there. Appreciate it.
Thanks, bro.
Cheers, man.
Good to chat.